You wake up. The room is dark. The house is silent. And when you check the time, it's 3 a.m. Again. This isn't random. This isn't insomnia. This isn't your mind racing or your bladder waking you. Something else is happening during these hours. Something that ancient spiritual texts warned about. Something that monks, mystics, and exorcists have understood for millennia. The hours between 3 and 4 a.m. are called the witching hour, the devil's hour, the hour of the wolf. And there's a reason every spiritual tradition on earth has identified this time as dangerous. Tonight, you're going to understand what's actually happening when you wake at 3 a.m., why it's intensifying for so many people right now, and what the spiritual war unfolding during these hours means for your soul. Let's start with what makes 3 a.m. different from any other hour. In Christian tradition, Jesus is believed to have died at 3 p.m., the hour of divine mercy, the moment when the veil between heaven and earth thinned to allow redemption. 3 a.m. is the inversion of that, 12 hours opposite, the mockery hour, the time when dark forces are said to be at their strongest because they're operating in direct opposition to the sacred. This isn't superstition. This is encoded in exorcism manuals, in monastic prayer schedules, in the written accounts of every major saint and mystic who documented spiritual warfare. But the significance of 3 a.m. goes deeper than Christian symbolism. In Chinese medicine and Taoist cosmology, every 2-hour window corresponds to a specific organ system, an energetic meridian. 3 to 5 a.m. is the time of the lung meridian. The lungs govern breath, and breath is the bridge between body and spirit. But the lungs also govern grief, sadness, and unprocessed sorrow. And in the spiritual framework, this is the time when the veil between the physical and spiritual realms is thinnest, when your consciousness is most vulnerable, when entities that feed on fear, grief, and despair have the easiest access. The Tibetan Buddhists recognized this window as well. They called it the Brahma Muhurta, when used intentionally before 3 a.m., the ambrosial hours, ideal for meditation because the mind is naturally still. But they also warned about the period after 3 a.m., the time when hungry ghosts and negative entities roam freely, when practitioners who weren't adequately protected could be attacked, deceived, or drained during their practices. This is why monks and yogis who meditate during these hours undergo years of purification and protection training before attempting it. Now here's what's actually happening when you wake at 3 a.m. without intending to. Your consciousness is being pulled out of sleep. Something is interrupting your natural circadian rhythm, and while modern medicine will tell you it's cortisol spikes or sleep cycle disruptions, that's describing the mechanism, not the cause. What's causing your system to spike cortisol at exactly 3 a.m.? What's triggering your nervous system to pull you into alert wakefulness during the hour when sleep should be deepest? The ancient texts say it's one of 3 things: an attack, a call, or a test, and you need to know which one you're experiencing, because the response to each is completely different. Let's talk about attacks first, because this is the one most people don't want to acknowledge. The idea that malevolent entities exist, that they can interact with your energy field, that they specifically target certain people during vulnerable hours, it sounds medieval, paranoid, unscientific. But every culture in human history has documented this phenomenon. The sleep paralysis demon, the night hag, the incubus and succubus, the shadow people. Different names, same essential experience. A presence in the room, a weight on the chest, an overwhelming sense of dread, the inability to move or speak, and it happens most frequently between 3 and 4 a.m. Modern science calls this sleep paralysis and explains it as a misfiring between REM sleep and waking consciousness. Your mind wakes up, but your body is still in the paralysis state that prevents you from acting out dreams. That's the mechanism, but it doesn't explain why the experience is so consistently terrifying. Why people across cultures who've never heard of sleep paralysis describe the exact same entities. The same shadowy figures, the same feeling of malevolent intelligence, the same sense that something is feeding on their fear. The spiritual explanation is that these entities are real, not physical, but energetic, beings that exist in frequencies just outside normal human perception. And during sleep, especially during the 3 a.m. hour when your consciousness is naturally more detached from your body, you become visible to them. And if your energy field is weakened, if you're carrying unresolved trauma, fear, guilt, or shame, you become a target. Because these entities feed on low-frequency emotional energy. Fear is food. Terror is a feast. and the 3 a.m. hour is when they hunt. But before you spiral into fear, understand this. You cannot be attacked unless there's an opening, unless there's something in your energy field that matches their frequency. This is the law of resonance. Like attracts like. If you're waking at 3 a.m. in terror, feeling presences, experiencing sleep paralysis, it's not random. Something in your consciousness is resonating with that frequency. An unhealed wound, an unconfessed sin, an attachment to guilt or shame, a portal opened through occult practices, drug use, or trauma. And the first step to closing that portal is acknowledging it exists. The second reason you might wake at 3 a.m. is very different. It's a call, not from something dark, but from something higher. The same thinning of the veil that allows negative entities access also allows divine communication. And if you're on a spiritual path, if you've been praying for guidance, if you've asked to be used for a higher purpose, waking at 3 a.m. might be your answer, because this is the hour when the noise of the world is silent. When the frequency interference from billions of waking minds is at its lowest, when your higher self, your guides, or the divine itself can reach you most clearly. In monastic traditions, this hour is called vigils or matins, the night office. Monks wake intentionally at 3 a.m. to pray because they understand this is when the channel is clearest, when contemplation goes deepest, when communion with God is most direct. And if you're waking at this hour naturally, if you feel a pull not toward fear but toward stillness, toward meditation, toward prayer, you're being invited into something. You're being called to a deeper level of practice, a deeper level of service. But here's where it gets tricky. How do you know the difference between an attack and a call? How do you know if you're being hunted or summoned? The answer is in how you feel. An attack brings dread, heaviness, paralysis, confusion, a sense of being violated or invaded. A call brings clarity, stillness, a sense of purpose. Sometimes awe or even a gentle fear, but it's the fear of standing before something holy, not something malevolent. The fear of Moses before the burning bush, not the terror of darkness, but the trembling of recognition. And then there's the third possibility, a test. In the ancient mystery schools, initiates were subjected to trials during the night hours. They were placed in dark temples, in underground chambers, in situations designed to trigger their deepest fears. And they were told that what they encountered was both real and not real. Real in the sense that the entities and visions were actual energetic phenomena. Not real in the sense that they only had power if the initiate gave it to them. The test was whether the initiate would react with fear or stand in their power. Waking at 3 a.m. can be this kind of test. A challenge from your own higher consciousness to see if you've integrated what you've been learning, to see if you can remain centered when the shadows come, to see if you'll pray or panic, to see if you'll reach for your phone to distract yourself or sit in the discomfort and breathe through it. Every spiritual path includes tests, moments when everything you've studied is put into practice, and the 3 a.m. waking is often one of those moments. Now let's talk about why this is intensifying right now. Why so many people are reporting that they never used to wake at 3 a.m. But suddenly, in the last few years, it's happening constantly. This isn't coincidence. The veil is thinning globally. The frequency of the planet is rising. We're in the transition period the ancient texts predicted. And during transition periods, the boundary between dimensions becomes permeable. Things that were hidden become visible. Beings that operated unseen become perceptible. And people who were spiritually asleep their entire lives suddenly start having experiences they can't explain. This is part of the awakening process. But awakening doesn't just mean bliss and enlightenment. It means you become aware of everything. The light and the shadow. The divine and the demonic. The beauty and the horror. And if you're not prepared, if you haven't done the inner work to stabilize your energy field, the sudden awareness of the spiritual dimensions can be overwhelming, terrifying, destabilizing. The entities that operate during the 3 a.m. hour have always been there, but now more people can sense them, and these entities know that. They know the veil is thin, they know that humans are waking up, and they're increasing their activity because they understand their time is limited. The higher the collective frequency rises, the less power they have, but during the transition, during the chaos, during the period when people are confused and afraid, they can still feed. They can still attach. They can still interfere. This is the spiritual war nobody talks about, not the metaphorical war between good and evil ideologies, the actual war happening in frequencies beyond normal perception. a war for human consciousness, for your attention, for your energy, for your soul. And the 3 a.m. hour is one of the primary battlegrounds. But here's what you need to understand. You are not powerless. The ancient texts give very specific instructions for what to do when you wake at 3 a.m., and these instructions work because they're based on spiritual law, not superstition. First, do not give in to fear. Fear is the goal. Fear is what they want. Fear lowers your frequency and gives them access. The moment you feel fear rising, you speak. Out loud. You say, "I do not consent. You have no authority here. I belong to the light." It doesn't matter what religion you follow or don't follow. The words themselves carry power because they're a declaration of sovereignty. You're asserting your free will, and free will is the one law that cannot be violated in the spiritual realms. Second, you pray. Not begging prayers, not fearful prayers. Prayers of authority. The Lord's Prayer is used in exorcisms for a reason. The 23rd Psalm, the Jesus Prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. These aren't magic spells, they're frequency tools. They realign your consciousness with the highest source, and when you're aligned with that frequency, nothing of lower frequency can touch you. Third, you breathe. Intentionally. Slowly. Deep breaths that activate your parasympathetic nervous system and remind your body it's safe. Breath is the bridge between the physical and spiritual. Controlled breath is controlled energy, and entities that feed on chaos cannot operate in the presence of calm, controlled energy. Fourth, you visualize light. See it filling your body. See it expanding around your bed, your room, your home. White light, gold light, violet flame, whatever resonates with you. Visualization is not imagination. It's energy direction. Where your attention goes, energy flows. And when you direct light into your field, darkness cannot remain. Fifth, if the presence persists, you command it to leave. Not asking, commanding. In the name of Christ, the divine source, whatever represents ultimate authority to you, I command you to leave. You are not welcome here. Go now. And you say it with absolute certainty, because certainty is frequency. Doubt is an opening. Faith is a fortress. Now here's what happens when you start doing this consistently. The attacks stop, not because the entities are gone from the world, but because you're no longer a viable target. Your field is too strong, your frequency too high, your awareness too sharp, and they move on to easier prey. This is not cruelty. This is spiritual ecology. Predators hunt the weak. Strengthen yourself, and you're no longer prey. But there's another layer to this. If you're waking at 3 a.m. and it's a call, not an attack, ignoring it has consequences. Because when the divine calls and you don't answer, the call gets louder. It starts manifesting as disruption in your life. Things stop working. Relationships fall apart. Jobs end. Health declines. Not as punishment, as redirection, as a stripping away of everything that's keeping you from your purpose. The universe is trying to get your attention. And if gentle methods don't work, it uses harsher ones. So if you're waking at 3 a.m. and you feel the call, answer it. Get up. Sit in meditation. Pray. Journal. Listen. Ask what's being asked of you. Ask what you're being prepared for. Ask what you're supposed to release or step into, and then do it. Because the call at 3 a.m. is never casual. It's urgent. It's important. It's connected to why you incarnated in this specific time. The monks understood this. That's why they structured their entire lives around the night office. They knew that the work done in the 3 a.m. hour had more impact than the work done during the day. Because at 3 a.m. you're not distracted. You're not performing. You're not managing your image or fulfilling obligations. At 3 a.m., it's just you and the truth. You and God. You and your shadow. You and the choice of who you're going to be when no one else is watching. And here's what you'll notice as you start working with this hour instead of fearing it. Your spiritual discernment sharpens. You start recognizing the difference between your thoughts and implanted thoughts, between your emotions and entities feeding on your emotions, between true guidance and deceptive guidance. You develop what the ancients called the gift of discernment of spirits, the ability to sense what's of God and what's of the enemy. And that gift is critical for navigating the times we're in, because the war isn't coming. It's here. It's been here. It's always been here. But now the veil is thin enough that you can see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to sleep. You can't pretend it's not happening. You have to choose a side, not a religious side, not a political side, a frequency side, light or darkness, truth or deception, love or fear, sovereignty or submission. And the 3 a.m. hour is where that choice gets tested every single night. Will you panic or will you pray? Will you scroll your phone to distract yourself or will you sit with the discomfort? Will you give your energy to fear or will you reclaim it through presence? The entities operating during this hour are counting on you to stay afraid, to stay confused, to stay distracted. Because as long as you're afraid, you're controllable. As long as you're confused, you're manipulable. As long as you're distracted, you're not a threat. But the moment you understand what's happening, the moment you take authority over your own consciousness, the moment you stop being a victim and become a warrior, everything changes. Those who walked this path, who've learned to navigate the 3 a.m. hour, who faced the shadows and spoken the words of power, they carry a different frequency. You can feel it when you're around them. There's a groundedness, a calm, an authority that doesn't need to announce itself. Because they've been tested, they've been in the fire, they've stood face to face with their own darkness and with the darkness that prowls outside, and they didn't break, they didn't bow, they didn't submit, and now they're awake, truly awake, not just spiritually curious, not just reading books and listening to podcasts, but battle-tested, initiated, forged. If you're waking at 3 a.m., this is your invitation to stop being afraid of the dark and learn to carry light into it, to stop being a victim of spiritual forces and become a conscious participant in the spiritual war, to stop wondering why this is happening to you and start understanding it's happening for you. Because you're being trained, prepared, activated. The 3 a.m. hour is not your enemy, it's your training ground. And what you do with it will determine which side of the war you're strengthening. If this truth has gripped you, if you recognize yourself in this message, leave the words, "I stand in the light," in the comments. Not as a hope, as a declaration, as a line drawn in the spiritual sand. And if you want to go deeper, to learn the specific prayers, protections, and practices that masters have used to navigate spiritual warfare, subscribe. Because what comes next will equip you for battles most people don't even know are being fought. The 3 a.m. hour is coming again tonight. For all of us, the only question is whether you'll meet it awake or asleep, empowered or afraid, as prey or as a warrior. Choose wisely. The war is real, and you're in it.